What's up, live builders? Welcome back to our weekly live show. Today we have a very special guest, Chris Blauvelt, who is the CEO of LaunchGood, which is a online crowdfunding company, which has raised over 36 million as of today for causes in over 100 countries. Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. As people are rolling in, if you can tell us a little bit about how did this start, LaunchGood?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Hassan, in the name of God. How did it start? It's a long story. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have long stories. And since we got an hour, I'll give you the slightly long story, but I won't take it the hour. In a sense, it started back in 2001. Two critical things happened in 2001. The first is when I was 16, I decided to become Muslim. And that was its own journey. I'm not going to necessarily get into now, but let's say a big part of it is inspired by Malcolm X and the history of I think Islam being really standing up for social justice and trying to correct especially the hearts of people. And then 3 months after I became Muslim, 9/11 happened, or the attacks on the Twin Towers in New York City. So one had me on a high on my Islam, and the next had me on a low, and really confused. And that set me off on a journey to really understand my faith better. And I came out of that realizing that Islam is not the Islam of Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda and terrorism, but Islam is the Islam that gave birth to modern medicine and universities and algebra and chemistry and so many great things that's benefited all of humanity, not just Muslims. And so part of me wanted to get into changing that message, of what Islam is in America, and that led me into film. And I was a film producer. In 2010, we had a film get to a very prestigious festival called the Sundance Film Festival, arguably the most prestigious film festival in America.
Yeah, for sure.
And we were dead broke. And so it was really exciting, but also very intimidating, because we're like, man, this is real. Like we did it, right? But now we got to finish this movie and make a website and DVDs and sell it and all this stuff. And we had a friend from New York said, hey, check out this new website called Kickstarter. I think probably most of your audience knows Kickstarter today. It's raised over $3 billion for creative and entrepreneurial projects. But at that time, Kickstarter was actually brand new. We were one of the first projects in Michigan and Detroit to use Kickstarter. We were the first Muslims to use Kickstarter. And we had a very successful campaign, raised over $20,000. And I fell in love with crowdfunding. I fell in love with Kickstarter. And I saw the impact that Kickstarter was having on the creative community in America. And I thought, and that impact specifically was empowerment. That's what really caught my attention. Was, prior to 2009, if you had a great idea or something you're really passionate about and you wanted to make it and you needed some funding, you better hope you have a rich uncle. And all of a sudden with Kickstarter, it wasn't like that. I was like, no, I can just go to my friends and my family and my fans and ask them, hey, here's my dream. Like, will you support it, give birth to it? And I felt this was specifically something the Muslim community needed, because although I mentioned all that great stuff we've done in history, we've got 1.6 billion Muslims on the earth today, and not a lot to show for it, to be frank. And a lot of our community is stuck in this victim mindset that, oh, we're powerless. We're, all these circumstances are holding us back. And it's not to discount the negative circumstances we may face, but we always have agency. People, no matter how bad their life is, there's always some control they have over their lives. And I saw what Kickstarter was doing again in that creative community, providing that inspiration, that agency. And I thought if we could do this for the Muslim community, we could really change the world. And so that was my inspiration to start LaunchGood.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's such a beautiful. So LaunchGood is a crowdfunding for initiatives focused on the Muslim community. Now, oftentimes, a lot of folks who are first time maybe starting a business or starting an initiative, we often see the end result, right? So I see what LaunchGood is now today.
Yeah.
So show me sort of, at first it was an idea, right? So how did it go from an idea to, being a company? What's the process like?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. So it looks easy, like you said, right? I mean, if we jump on the timeline, it was like 2010, I had that light bulb moment. And then 2013, the website launched, like 3 years later. That's a long time. It's like, what happened in those 3 years?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so although I had some entrepreneurial background, right? I had helped start an Arabic program called Fawaki, which is still going in DC. And then, of course, I helped start this film company. But I never done anything in tech, even though, my formal education is in engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer. I had never actually, coded some app before, some website, and so it's like I couldn't do it myself. I was just like, I have this idea, but I have no idea how to get it done. I was really fortunate. Well, a couple of things. One is there was another friend of mine who had a similar idea around the same time, different part of the country. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Hey, Faisal, let's do this together. It could be really great. And a couple of weeks later, I hear back from him. He's like, oh, I changed my mind. I did a further analysis, and I just don't think this could be a viable business. And I think this is the first thing for your audience to understand is you always have people that doubt you and doubt your idea. In fact, you're going to come across a lot of people that doubt you and your idea. And if you let yourself get shaken by that, you'll never produce. And so you really have to almost be stubborn that, no, if you really believe something, like despite the naysayers, you go forth and do it. And from that, I was very fortunate that in our city of Detroit, we had a entrepreneurship kind of program by our local billionaire, Dan Gilbert. And so during the nighttime, I'd go and I was developing my idea. And after I finished that program, I found a mentor of mine to become our angel investor, like $20,000, and use that to hire some developers in Pakistan, which in hindsight, you have to be really careful.
I had some bad experience with those.
Yeah, people have good and bad experience. We're back. We have a developer in Pakistan now. We might add a second. And so if you know what you're doing, it can work out. But you really need to know what you're doing. But anyway, we hired those developers. I worked very closely with them for about 18 months. Now, 18 months is like too long to wait, to be honest. And so within that time, I taught myself WordPress. We launched a WordPress site that was kind of more of a marketing platform for crowdfunding campaigns. And I'd run those crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter or GoFundMe or Indiegogo. And so that's the second lesson, I believe, for people is things aren't all going to fall in line. Like my friend Sultan Sharif, who is the film producer that I worked, or the film director that I worked with, he had a saying, which is, get what you want with what you've got. And so I was like, well, I can't code a whole website, but WordPress isn't so bad to learn. Or today it's like Squarespace. Like it's really actually it's even much easier today. And you take steps, or you create what's called like a minimally viable product. Like just test the idea. Like, is there any traction at all? And then, I think the third thing I did that was really good along the way is I found two amazing co-founders. And that's a really critical point to keep in mind is that you can't do this alone. You're going to need a team to build this with you. And
business is a team sport, as they say.
That's a good way of putting it, a team sport. And we get enamored with these ideas like oh, Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook. Like in reality, if you go into the story of Facebook, it's a bunch of people working with Mark Zuckerberg to make it happen. It's just easier to tell a story when there's only one main character. Like people think a lot of times of me when they think of LaunchGood, but that's really, it's like as much Imani Kalawi and Omar Hamid as it is me. For better or worse, I take a lot of the credit. But really, they're the heroes behind it. And you have to be really careful because like those early people that work with you, they will make or break your company. Maybe not make it. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to go right to make it, but they can certainly break it. And generally, you hear like the best entrepreneurs and mentors, they advise that the first 5 people in a company set the DNA of that company. So you have to be extremely cautious about who you choose and let on. You can't build like an A+ company unless you have A+ talent. And I think just one last lesson, I'm talking a lot here.
This is good stuff. Continue.
Here's the real challenge a lot of entrepreneurs face. They're like, they get that. It makes sense. Like, yeah, you want to build A+ company, you need A+ talent.
Right.
But where is that A+ talent working? They're already at Facebook or, McKinsey or Boston Consulting group. So like BCG. So it's like, okay, how are you going to get these all-star people to join your team? Like they're already making over $100,000, very promising career tracks, very stable. Like why would they join you? And so you're left with two options. One option is you don't go for A+ talent. You go for like the B or C level talent. And that's the easiest option and the worst option. Because if you do that, you'll never build anything more than a B or C level company. The second option is you find that A+ talent before anybody else. Mm-hmm. So my co-founders, one of them was a senior in college. The other actually never even finished college. Mm. But I could tell like they were amazing that people, and they were going to just be the and I just had to invest in them while they were young still, and have patience with them and grow with them. I mean, I myself have grown quite a bit the last 5 years, but I think you get those components in place and you can really get off the ground.
I'm sorry, there's so many things that you hit on that I want to go back and dive into. But so going back to my, I guess originally we're talking about how does it go from an idea to what is this right now, 5 years later, right? So you had this idea, you were in this entrepreneurship program of some kind, sounds like. Then you found an angel investor. Then the idea grew and you found co-founders along the way. And it was day in and day out. And I think you touched on when the idea is just an idea, then it's hard. People doubt you. You don't see how it actually will look like as an end product, or even not an end product, but a product that's presentable.
Yeah.
Right? So how did you keep going? I mean, for the first 18 months, you were just, trying to do development work. When it was just an idea, what kept you going? And how did you deal with, as you said, folks that doubt you? What did you do personally for you?
Well, to be honest, part of it is just personality. One of my character flaws is I can be really stubborn. And that's also a character strength when it comes to entrepreneurship. So, and listen, like I became Muslim when I was 16. Like I've been dealing with people questioning my decisions for a long time. Right?
Of course, at 16, you're changing faith from your family. You're really fighting the force.
I guess I kind of have thick skin when it comes to that. Also, I've been blessed with parents who are successful entrepreneurs, and my mother especially. And she's always instilled in me that you have to give any business idea 3 years to pan out. Really see if it's going to work or not. And I had experienced that through my career. Like we had a great start to our film company, but by our third year, everything started waning. And with LaunchGood, it's been the opposite. Like even it's not like we launched and it was like, oh yeah, this is it. Like boom. In our first 6 months, we raised $100,000 on our platform. We raised that typically within a couple days now. But in those first 6 months, imagine that $100,000, we make 5%. That means we made $5,000 our first 6 months. Like we were on pace to make $10,000 our first year. We had our worst month was our 12th month of operation. Like not our first or second or third month. Like our worst month was our 12th.
What happened?
You could have a lot of doubt. Be like, oh man, we just celebrated 1 year with like our worst month ever. But you also, you have to look at the big picture. One of those keys is growth. And the growth isn't going to be consistent. It's not going to be like you're growing 50% month on month, but there's going to be a trend, right? And so it's like, okay, if you take an average of this line, is it trending up, flat, or down? And if you can just keep that growth positive year on year, then you end up with something called exponential growth. right? Like, Hassan, would you give me, like, is it a big deal if you gave me $1 this week?
No.
And then what if we doubled it so next week it's like $2. It's still not a
Right.
big deal, right? And
Right.
then next week is after that, it's $4. Like, okay, no
Right.
problem. I'm sure someone can do the math. Maybe one of the people on the chat here can do the math, but probably by the end of the year, you're going to owe me like over $1 million.
Right. Yes.
That's the power of exponential growth. And we've been fortunate in LaunchGood that we've been growing about 3x or
Wow.
tripling our growth every year over the last 5 years. And that's how we ended up with, $36 million in funds raised.
Beautiful. So you were talking about this. You had this 1 year mark. You had this big dip. So especially in any business that someone starts, or even a project, volunteer project, sometimes there's this dip periods where something comes up. You go through something really hard. So how did you? And what was one of the biggest failures that you had in this last 5 years? And what did you do personally to keep going?
So many juicy failures. Yeah, I mean, one of the early failures. We got out of the gate with a failure. Like we hit it head on. Right. Our very first project was one out in New York City. You're out of New York, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so do you know Zainab Ismail or something called or Nadine Abu Jabbar? They had something called Naduna, which is like women's fitness, hijabi fitness program.
I think I heard about it. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I have a friend named Nadine. She's from Florida. She's super nice, and she wanted to do a DVD set, the first hijabi workout DVD set, and we wanted to do it on LaunchGood, and that was going to be our launch project. She had a co-founder at that time. She was not a friend of mine, named Zainab, and she's a New Yorker. And you know how you guys are, like, mashallah, Hassan, you're a real nice guy, but most of the time you New Yorkers are like down to business, right? So Zainab's like, why in the world would we use LaunchGood? Like, we're going to use Kickstarter brand. We don't have time to mess around and be the guinea pig for this, startup. I don't know who Chris is. Like, we're doing Kickstarter, end of story. And then Kickstarter gave us a gift. For some reason, I still don't know why, they rejected their campaign. Like, they were all ready to go. They submitted it for review.
Wow.
Kickstarter was like, no, you don't meet our guidelines. And so then basically they had to use us. And we were like super excited. We weren't quite ready, but we're like, I think it's ready enough. Let's just do it. Let's go. So we launched it, and actually things went really well. And the project was doing great. And then on the final day of the campaign, this was an all or nothing campaign. And the final day of the campaign was Nadine's birthday. And they had a goal of 15,000. So they started the morning off at 10,000. And it was like, she's asking people, okay, for my birthday, I don't, like, if you love me, just donate, support our LaunchGood, right? So she's at 11, 12, 13, and it seemed like, okay, it's going to be perfect. Craziest thing happening. When she hit $15,000, well, one, everyone was double charged. That was like just a bug in our website, and I don't know why, but like everyone who donated got their card charged twice.
Wow.
Which looks bad.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, this is manageable. We just have to refund everybody one time.
Right.
Yes, there's like 300 people, but it's doable. It's not the end of the world. And as we're doing that, we noticed something with the website, that every subsequent donation counted down. So it was like, it got to 15,000. Someone donates $100 and it drops to 14,900.
Some more bug in the algorithms.
Well, the problem with that was like, there's only a few hours left, and then someone would come on and they see like, oh, they're just $100 short. So what do? They donate $100.
Right.
So then it becomes $14,800.
Wow.
And, like, you can just imagine how Zainab reacted. She was like, I told you, like, these idiots, like, like, why did we ever use them? So we're like trying to like damage control with the Naduna team and make sure they're not too upset. And then also refund all of our donors. And at the same time, like, we have to every time someone donates, we'd have to manually go in there and like change the number to 15,200. But as soon as someone else donated, it dropped again, and we'd have to like go back in and manually change it again. It was and then of course our developers in Pakistan, it was like, I don't know, 3 a.m. or something. So they were asleep. And the whole thing was like kind of a nightmare. It certainly stressed out my co-founder, Amani, a lot. Like she was really stressed out. But at some point I just started laughing and I was like, listen, you know, inshallah, if this works, one day we're going to look back on this and we're going to laugh about it. And we're going to be like, remember that time our very first project like was a total failure. And that's exactly where we are today. So that's another thing, keep in mind as an entrepreneur, you're going to come across undoubtedly tons of like falling flat on your face. And when it happens, take a deep breath, think about the big picture and laugh about it.
And I think it's not just only for entrepreneurs, I think also for anyone, even people who are in careers or in right now in school. Sometimes you go through a little rough patch, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's amazing. That I mean, I could only imagine, you know, your first client, if you will, and this is having a chaos, the backward numbering, not taking the payment, doubling, and you know, but
and the New Yorkers, don't forget about the New Yorkers.
Oh yeah, that's a big one, right?
By the way, I don't know if they will watch this or whatever, but she's a friend now. She's an amazing person.
I figured that you know, probably things worked out afterwards. But you know, I could imagine that. But that's just an amazing attitude to have that you have. You know what? We're gonna look back at this and realize, you know what? This is just the first one.
Yeah.
If it messes up one, it's not the biggest deal. And I think you even said that before you even launched the website, you had this WordPress sort of test page to help folks, you know, raise money in other platforms. So you're already test trying, you know, sort of some of your service in some sense.
Oh yeah, that's called an MVP. I don't know. Have you guys covered the concept of MVP already?
No, I mean our show is not so fully focused on entrepreneurship in that sense. We try to keep it more generic, so we don't go into super heavy tactics. But
I'll stay out of the techie term.
But you know, certain things. If folks have questions who are watching and who are you know in different fields, they can feel free to definitely get things out of you. So you know, you sort of that's the first project, and you had this failure, and you kept going. Now, I think you know, when did you get to a point where you had to hire your first employee?
That's a good question. You know, it's not black and white like that always. I think it depends on the business. I remember within like our first few months of operating, we got an email from somebody in Canada, in Calgary, and she's like, you know, I love your platform. I'd like to work with you. And we were like, well, I'm sorry, we don't have any money. We're like just started. And she's like, you know, I just want to volunteer my time. And that was incredible. And then from that, like a couple other people came on, and you know, like we got interns one year, and so like for probably our first year, we had people working with us a lot, like 20+ hours a week, but none of them were paid per se. And then as our revenues grew, and we were able to pay, like we had money left over from just paying our developers, because that was one thing like we couldn't get away with, is had to keep paying developers. Then we started paying people hourly. And then, you know, a year after that, we started paying our first people with a salary, really. And now, just in the last year, we've grown from like 2 or 3 kind of salaried employees to about 10 or 11 now.
So right now it's about 10 or 11 salaried employees.
And
I mean, in this sort of economy, of course, you know, things aren't as say 50 years ago. Of course, you know, there's a lot of consultants, a lot more people working freelance, and a lot of companies utilize. In some sense, you had these folks there you're employing in Pakistan, for example, right? So things are definitely a lot more fluid and dynamic.
Totally different. We have 20 people overall working with us now, and there's spread across 7 countries. So they're all over the world. Everyone works remote. Like we only have 3 people in our Detroit office, which is technically our headquarters. And one of the best things we've ever did is we started a fellowship program, which I think is, again, a great way to address this issue of like, how do you get great talent when you can't pay them? You do need to invest something. So we started a fellowship where we'd fly people into Detroit. We'd give them a week of training, give them great time in Detroit, take them to all like the halal foods and the sites to see. And then they go work remotely, and like they could still do their full-time job, but they just had to put in like 15 hours a week on the side or on weekends. And then at the end of 3 months, they could actually start working for us for pay. And at the end of 3 months, actually, we'd take them on like a really cool retreat to end it. So that might be like California or New York or Texas, something like that. And then throughout every week, we had online classes. We do some entrepreneurship training classes. So they would get a lot out of it, and they were able to give back a lot to us as LaunchGood. And from that fellowship, we've graduated over 20 people, and half of those people now work either part or full time for us. So it's been a great kind of recruiting tool.
I remember we met now what 3 years ago. You were in New York. And I saw you have a whole big team. What was it that some of your fellows?
That was the end of one of our fellowships. Exactly.
I figured that it's probably another trip that you came to New York.
Yeah, that was our New York trip, and yeah. So we just had one wrapped up in Malaysia, so that was really special.
Malaysia, nice.
Yeah, really cool.
So I'm getting the feel that in your company, there's this almost a mission culture. There's this almost that we're doing good for humanity. And then, of course, you have all these fellows and interns, people that email you to be part of it. But you are a for-profit organization, correct?
That's right. We are a for-profit and with a very strong sense of mission. That's exactly right.
And a lot of people, initially, I'll be honest with you, I thought that LaunchGood was a non-profit organization for some reason.
A lot of people think that, yeah.
What do you think that is?
It's not a bad thing. Sorry, what was your question?
I'm saying, what do you think that is? I think I get the impression that it was a non-profit.
It's interesting. I was listening to a podcast about Tom's of Maine, like the founder of Tom's of Maine, like toothpaste and natural products. And in the 60s, they were like, it was either you worked for a corporation and had no consciousness or conscious, or you like work for like Greenpeace or some nonprofit and you're all about like your, the environment or whatever your mission is.
Very separate between make money.
Now we're seeing emerging, like our generation just doesn't, like, it's not going to fly. Like we don't want to work for some heartless corporation. And there's just too many options out there of great companies you can work, are very fulfilling and mission driven. And maybe, so I take that as a compliment. The fact that you think we're nonprofit to me says, hey, you guys are really principled. You guys are really mission driven. You're not obsessed with, squeezing every dollar out of a person, but adding value to people's lives. But at the same time, I know we're a for-profit, which means we're able to build this sustainably. There have been other crowdfunding platforms that are like nonprofit, and they're just constantly begging people for money or doing like a fundraising dinner for themselves. And I'm just like, just build a strong business model. It was something I learned, especially going through my experience building the Arabic nonprofit that we did, which is it's actually doing great now, alhamdulillah, because the founder, Saif Omar, has taken the lead and has made some incredible leaders. But at the time I was starting it, I used to spend like 20 or 30% of my time fundraising. And as we grew bigger and bigger, it was like all of a sudden I'm spending like 80 or 90% of my time just raising donations. And I felt like
a lot of nonprofits have people hired just to do that, right? I mean,
they have to. I mean, the majority, the majority of their payroll goes to people who are raising them money. And so then you feel like, I felt like I'm just raising money just to pay my own salary. Like, what type of organization is that? And at the same time, Bayana had launched, and we saw Bayana. I mean, it's got things going on now. I'm not going to go into, but
Sure.
another Arabic program based in Dallas that was for profit, doing the same thing though. But it was like the only way they could make money was if they taught more people Arabic, and for that to work, they had to have really good classes. So they were laser focused. Like, we're gonna have amazing Arabic programs, and we're going around the country, and we're gonna teach this to everybody, and and they just they took off, and that really taught me. It's like, if you want a great sustainable business, make sure your financial engine aligns with your mission. And if you got that and you hit your mission, like, you're set. You don't have to worry about anything.
That's right. I mean, and I'm glad we're going into this because you are in the business of supporting causes. So I think I do want to take this time to sort of hear from you, sort of what's been your experience as far as, the way the causes, how monies are raised, the activism has changed over the last decade, right? I think with the advent of even all the sort of resources that we have through social media and through crowdfunding, people are initiating projects in ways that I think it wasn't done in the past. So I guess I have a few questions here. So one is, what have you learned about what seems to be the most successful campaigns online? If I want to raise money for a project, whatever the cause might be, what seems to be the most successful characteristics of the project that can raise the most money?
I think one that tells a great story and a donor feels like they can be part of that story. Sometimes that's really advanced, and sometimes it's the simplest thing, like, Imam Khalid Latif is really great. He's a prominent New York chaplain, where he's just helping people in his community, and you feel like if I have a chance to really make a difference and help somebody. If you want to change anybody, you have to be able to touch their heart. Humans are not actually so rational. Like, we like to imagine we're rational. We're actually emotional beings. And you have to, if you want to get someone to change a habit or open their wallet, like, you better hit their heart, not their mind. So as a whole, I'd say, who succeeds on LaunchGood? Those that end up telling a great story or have a really emotional campaign.
I'll focus on the Muslim community a little bit, because I know LaunchGood is focused on the Muslim community. I think that for a long time now, how many mosque or Islamic schools or Muslim organizations are now raising money through your platform at the moment?
Yeah, it's so interesting about that. Not as many as you'd think. We're mostly driven, I like to call it the silent majority. So the majority of Muslims actually are pretty faithful. Like, we might think like, okay, the Muslim community is not, maybe it's like other religious communities and not so practicing. Actually, something like 90% of Muslims fast for Ramadan, which is a crazy commitment. That's like 3 days of no food or water during the daytime.
Sure.
And most people are doing it. And most people, actually, charity is a big part of their life. And I think we complain sometimes that we don't give enough as a community, but actually, just objectively speaking, the Muslims are the most generous of all the religious groups in the West. And so, like, who are the people doing LaunchGood campaigns? Like, they not necessarily the person that sits as a president of a mosque or the principal of an Islamic school, but it's just, like, normal people in the community, to be quite honest, for something they care about. And
that's what I guessed, that a lot of the campaigns on LaunchGood are independent folks who care about a particular project, right? And it's very fascinating because I give a lot of sermons in a lot of mosques, and I think the older leadership, there's only catching on to the power that online crowdfunding, online fundraising, the ability that something like LaunchGood has.
Yeah.
Because as you said, not a lot of them are taking advantage of this, right? But I mean, how do you feel that, and how important is it for folks, these sort of brick and mortar type of institutions, to sort of now not only worry about having once a year gala or a fundraising event or a dinner, but also look into these sources like LaunchGood for funding their Islamic school, funding their construction of their building, for example? How effective would that be first of all, would that be effective, some local project like that? And would you recommend that?
Definitely. It's got to be, it has to be part of the arsenal that people have when they're fundraising, right? It's not going to do all your fundraising. Like typically, those gala dinners are still, pound for pound, the best way to raise a large chunk of money, right? Like you bring, Imam Siraj or Hajj and feed people some nice biryani or something, like you can get them to give a lot of money.
Right.
But it's changing fast. Like, I don't know how you are myself. Like, I'm really not, I've noticed I just like stopped going to a lot of those dinners. Like
same here. I mean, unless I'm, sometimes I'm forced to come as a speaker or whatnot, but yeah, I avoid them myself. So I'll give the donation, but I want to go there, sit there 3-4 hours and, get hammered.
Exactly. And then, it's, the communication is not always clear. Like, it's an inspiring dinner and you've got a great speaker, but it's not really clear. Like, well, what's the impact of this? Like, what's changing? What's changed? What's going to change? Whereas when you do it online, you really have to lay all that out. And some people get it. I mean, we've had, of course, I mentioned Imam Khalid Latif. Like, he's a prolific fundraiser on LaunchGood, did an amazing job. Imam Omar Suleiman, we worked with him on some of the mosques down in Texas that have raised, like almost $1 million. Also another mosque in Seattle. But they
raised close to $1 million on LaunchGood.
Yes, but this is the key to understand. When you do a LaunchGood, you can actually add in offline donations. So you could be at the fundraising dinner and you can say, oh, I got a $10,000 check from Dr. John or whatever, right? And you add it and your total reflects that. So those campaigns that, raise like $1 million for mosque, maybe 90% of the money that they've raised is actually offline. It's at that dinner or it's following up with people later. But it still created that visibility for the whole community. And still, 10% is still like a very significant amount of money extra to that. And so, like I said, it's got to be part of the arsenal, but it shouldn't be, it's not ready yet.
Because it's important, because oftentimes, especially my local mosque, I'll give an example. I grew up here, and it's one of the biggest mosques in New York. And during the fundraiser, I always get this phone call, email, and they always tell me, you guys, young professionals, I don't see you guys at the fundraisers. And I said, a lot of my age group, they donate online. Yeah. And that's how they do things. So that definitely speaks to the power that something like LaunchGood has. Now, I do want to speak a little more about your own backstory. We have very little time, so I want to get to that. But I do want to ask, I think something that's also very important. It's a little sticky question about social media activists, right? So in the last 10 years, people have been using social media to do some amazing things. And still, there are some folks, I guess, even in our community, who look at these folks who just, we don't see them in the community. We just see their posts and their whatever they do online. But have you, with LaunchGood, I think you can sense the impact that these folks might have, because they can use that influence to actually raise actual, hard dollars. Is that been your case? I mean, what have you seen, some of these independent projects where they're taken up by folks who would make fun and say they are social media activists?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Case in point, another New Yorker, Linda Sarsour. She's done just unbelievable, incredible things. Most notably, the Jewish cemeteries, like rebuilding Jewish cemeteries. She had a goal of raising $20,000. When she sent that out to her network, she hit her goal within the first few hours.
I mean, obviously, she is definitely, you know, broad spectrum and leader in the community. But even more, I mean, have you seen folks who just they're not really engaged in with any particular organization, Muslim organization, Muslim mosque, but they're just, you know, active on social media and live their own life, but were they able to have some impact through?
It's a mixed bag, to be honest. There are some people who are social media activists that are not influencers. So like, have you ever read Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point?
I think I saw it once, but I haven't read it. No.
Oh, you got to read it, man. Tipping Point with Malcolm Gladwell. It's a classic. But he talks about, you know, you need certain people and to get things done, like to create a movement.
Right.
And some people are connectors. So they have tons of connection. Like they'll have 5,000 Facebook friends and they'll have like, you know, 100,000 followers on Instagram or whatever, right? And then some people are influencers, meaning like when they tell people to jump, they say how high, right? They do it.
Right.
So you get someone like Linda, she's both. Linda's a connector, but she's also an influencer. Some people are just connectors, though. Like they might have a loud voice online, but when they ask people to put money down,
it doesn't equate.
No one. So, you know, it's we don't really know exactly until someone launches a campaign which one they are. Sometimes they get mad at us. They're like, "How come no one's donating?" We're like, "Well, I don't know. Like, why don't you tell me, right?" It might be a reality check for some people.
True.
But generally, actually, they can do some really great work. We had one recently, very popular guy on Instagram who makes metal work of like Arabic calligraphy and stuff. And you know, on WhatsApp, you get those like ridiculous stories people are always forwarding like to groups and stuff.
Oh yes, those you know, world is coming to an end type of messages as well.
One of them was this like picture of a poor old Moroccan man selling eggs in a marketplace, and there was a story about how, you know, we're more or less like neglecting, you know, poor Muslims and older Muslims, and we need to do a better job taking our principles. And he was so intrigued. He's like, I wonder if this is a real person or just some like stock photo. And he looked into it and found out this is a real guy in Morocco. And so then he created a LaunchGood to raise him like a couple $1,000, which would be basically a year's salary for that guy.
Wow.
And it went viral and ended up raising like $20,000. And he actually just recently flew to Morocco and personally delivered the money to him and his family. And like they were overwhelmed and crying. So, you know, you see stuff like that. It's really amazing. There's bad stuff in the world, and you know, the internet can certainly be used for a lot of bad things, but it can also be used for amazing things. And
this is so powerful. I mean, you know, and how important is it for people? I mean, you know, I think oftentimes, a lot of time we hear about, you know, you have to give back, you have to contribute to the world. But I think, you know, maybe in the past, you know, with the internet now, you could be doing so much, and you can have so much impact, you know. And I think regardless whether you are in activism or you are in whatever career you're in, I think making it part of your life to be able to have impact and contribute in whatever way you can, and even raising awareness for something and raising money for something, that's just simple, yet it can have a lot of powerful, you know, long-term effect.
Oh, spot on.
So just in the last 15 minutes that we have together, I want to sort of take a little step back and talk about you and your sort of the backstory. So I know you started from 16, and you know you of course you became Muslim, but take me a little bit before that. I mean, where did you grow up, and what was your one of your best memories growing up?
That's a good question. I was born in Malaysia, actually, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. My father was working for American Express and had been transferred there. And then after a couple of years, we moved to Korea. So from 2 years old to 5 years old, I was in Seoul, South Korea.
Wow.
And then we moved to New Jersey, Bergen County, which is like not far from you guys at all. My father worked in New York, so, you know, we'd I went to New York a bunch. And then at some point, my mother's business had taken off. She had like kind of a healthcare consulting business to the point that my dad could quit his job at American Express and work with my mother full time. And then since it's consulting, they could live anywhere. And my mother had gone to college in Western Massachusetts, and they thought that'd be nice. And so when I was 13, we moved to Amherst, Massachusetts. And from there, I became Muslim at 16. When I was 18, I decided to come to University of Michigan to study engineering. And then I started working as an engineer and decided that was not as great as I thought. And I went back to school, got a degree in educational leadership, taught for a couple of years. And then in the summertime, I was doing the Arabic Fawaki, the Arabic program, nonprofit that we started. And then after a couple of years, I decided to do that full time. And then from there into film, and then film into LaunchGood. So that's kind of the whole back.
You had a long journey starting from your birth. I mean, from Malaysia to South Korea. So you've been moving around.
I love it. And you asked for happy memory. Oh, happy memory from my childhood, huh? Honestly, it was just ball out your leg, just that sort of stuff. Nothing spectacular, just pretty normal, kid, I guess.
Kid. I mean, you definitely had, with your world travel from a very young age, and I think your mindset, your perception, I think was, different, definitely. So now you have this LaunchGood that you're running. You have another project that you're also started. And
can you remember how to say it? I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
I already forgot how to say it.
Patronicity. Yeah, I got patronicity.
So and I know you have 2 kids. And wife. I mean, how do you balance it all? Well, first of all, before I get to the balance, what is your daily schedule like?
It's going to sound religious. I don't want to say not Muslim, but I have to be honest. So this is just how I do it.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm very, very grateful and very, very, very fortunate to live across the street from the mosque. That kind of happened by accident 5 years ago, or 8 years ago. Oh my God. So that happened. Detroit, we happened to move next door to the mosque, and I fell in love with being next door to a mosque. And so when we moved to Dearborn 4 years ago, that was like the number one rule. I was like, I have to be able to walk to a mosque. And we found a house more or less across the street. So because of that, I always get to start my day off with a prayer in the mosque, the Fajr, the morning prayer. And now with 2 kids, I used to go back to sleep after that. Now with 2 kids, usually not so lucky.
They're up and ready to go, right?
Right. Yeah, right as you're ready to go back to sleep, but whatever. So,
how old are your 2 kids?
How old are they? Let's see, 10 months tomorrow. And so that's the young one, Omar. And then Miriam is 3.5.
Wow.
And so I like to schedule my day around the prayers at the mosque, because also my office is located next door to another mosque. So whether I'm home or at my office, I'm next door to a mosque.
So you try to stay connected to a mosque.
And it's good. It's just, I think when you have fixed things in your schedule, it forces you to be really organized and careful with your time.
For sure.
So, I start my day off, mosque, come home, breakfast with the family, get the day, ready for the day. Something I really dearly love is a certain prayer we have called like the how would you call duha prayer? Like morning prayer or something?
I would say late morning prayer.
There's a name for it. I just can't remember it. But anyway, late
Sure.
morning prayer. And then I start my work. So like right before I start my work, I make that prayer. I usually have about a 20-minute commute to Detroit to my office. And I love to listen to podcasts or listen to books. So I think it's about
What do you
trying to
listen
learn.
to nowadays?
There's a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, which is great for any CEO. I'm also listening to a lot of podcasts. How I Built This is one that I really love. I love stories. I love listening to those stories of other entrepreneurs and how they did it. Planet Money, Muslim Link. Yeah, there's a few different ones out there. It gets me kind of in the zone for work. And then, you know, at work, I do a lot of meetings or a lot of communication with my team. I actually don't do so many emails. And that's something that's shifted over the years that has been really good is I try to save emails for chunks. Like, so I'll work on emails for like an hour, but I'm not spending my day like just doing emails back and forth. But you can get caught up in that like really easily.
Yeah.
And then, you know, come home, family time for a couple hours. I try not to do any work. And once the kids to bed, you know, I might just dive into some emails, communication and preparing for the next day for like an hour or so.
So do you plan out your days in a weekly basis, or do you have rough idea in the morning? How do you sort of map out your week days?
I would say at this point, you know, most of my schedule is fixed between like whether it's prayers or certain meetings I have with my teammates, certain report check-ins with my employees. Like a lot of those things are fixed in the calendar already. So, you know, it's like my day's already set when I go to bed. Like I don't have to think too much about it.
It's pretty consistent.
It's when I'm here, it's fairly consistent. I'm always on the move. Like I just spent 2 months in Malaysia, and then that was just crazy. But the nice thing about being home in Detroit is it is fairly consistent. Yeah.
Do you? I mean, do you have days that you feel lazy? I mean, you're just like, I'm just tired.
Yeah. Today I felt lazy. Yeah. Today I had hard trouble getting up. It's unfortunately a personal circumstance, but you know, just make dua, inshallah. But
no, you're my prayers.
No, that's life, man. I mean, we have people. You know, when you start this off, you don't expect that. Like when you're just so focused on your business, and then guess what? Like people get married, people have kids, people die, people get divorced. Like it's a lot of highs and lows. People get abusive relationships. I mean, I've had many employees like cry on my shoulders, virtually or physically. You know, and I've cried on people's shoulders. It's life. It's a big part of life, and that's again why it's great to have an amazing team behind you, because when you need that moment that time for yourself, they're going to support you, and then you can be there for them when they need it too.
Wow. So, I mean, you know, as your company is growing, obviously you're dealing with people, right? I mean, the people in their own lives. And of course, it seems like the culture you have in your company, it's a very much family culture, is very, very much, you really care about people. I can tell you'll be a good boss, Chris.
The greatest joy is the fact that I'm now, you know, salary doesn't, who doesn't, one of my employees in paid healthcare, she treatment for right away, and the treatment like, yeah.
I'm losing you there
That felt really,
for a minute.
really good.
Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah. Plug in my laptop.
Okay.
All right.
All right, now we're back.
I don't know. Did you hear my whole story about my employee with the
No,
healthcare?
I caught bits and pieces. But if you
Let me
want to,
try to say it again.
yeah.
Just like one of my employees, she's an angel, and she from my other company, Patronicity, but she developed like a early stage breast cancer, and she's very very modest background in terms of like her parents can't pay for anything, she can't pay for anything, but we had great health coverage. We had 80% paid by the company, and she was able to get the best treatment possible, and she was cured, and like her life was saved, and so like you're not thinking you're going to do that when you start your company. You're not thinking about like you're going to provide really meaningful salaries and healthcare and support for people, but that's a great part of being a business owner that I'm so grateful for.
Those human factors sort of come in, all right. So today you felt a little lazy, going back to your schedule. What do you do for fun? What do you enjoy doing?
Basketball.
Basketball. Wow. Okay.
Playing it, watching it. I love basketball.
So you always been into basketball?
Yeah. I think I've always liked it, and fortunately, I went from being like one of the shortest people in my class to being one of the taller ones in high school. Right. So I had a big growth spurt, and that helped a lot. It helps to be like over 6 feet tall when you play basketball.
Of course.
And I got better with time too. But I like team sports, and I think it goes back to the same thing with my entrepreneurism. So it's not to like brag, but right. I used to be an exceptional tennis player. I won tournaments in Massachusetts. I went undefeated my senior year of high school. I was really like my whole life I've played tennis 12 months a year. Like I was really good at it, but I just got tired of it. It's just it's a very individual sport.
It's a solo sport, right?
Yeah, and I love basketball. Like I love being in like the experience of coming together with a team and overcoming odds, and that's what I love. And so
you love the people's energy and being able to work together, not be solo sort of. Makes sense. Now how often do you get to play these days?
Typically once a week. So
once a week.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're married with 2 young kids,
I can imagine.
You can do once a week with basketball. That's pretty solid.
Right.
And, I think with anything in life, it's about consistency. I'm very grateful. I just got something last Ramadan called an ijaza, or a what do you call that?
It's a permission certification, right?
Yeah, certification of a sort in Quran recitation with a very famous scholar here, and I had to spend like 4 years working on that, but it was just consistently 1 hour a week, every 1 day a week, and but I just like it seems like it's going to take forever, but as long as you're consistent, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
Wow! Were you memorizing the Quran, or were you?
That was in qira'ah, in recitation.
Yeah. Very nice.
But I'm also working on that the memorization with a different teacher, and again, it's one of those things where you're like, wow, this is going to take like 2 decades, but I'm a quarter done now, so that's pretty good, I think.
It's beautiful. You're balancing a lot. You got your own personal development, your own. You're increasing, your knowledge of your religion, and your, so there's a lot going on. And how often do you get to watch basketball?
I was watching before this. I watched the Cleveland Cavs.
So how much time are you spending per week watching basketball? put you on the spot there.
I know. I want to say like 4 hours a week, maybe.
4 hours a week.
It's not a lot. I don't know. It is and it isn't. You know, you have to make decisions. Like, you know, as I get older, I cut back more and more in the sports I watch.
Right.
So like I gave up on baseball. I gave up on hockey. And I gave up on fantasy football.
Well, that can take a long time.
Yeah, I actually did it. I measured the amount of hours I was spending watching football, or like being, you know, paying attention to football when I played fantasy football, and I was like astounded. I was like, oh my God, it's like, I don't know, 12 hours a week or something, just 10 hours a week. I don't know, some large amount of time thinking or watching football. And I was like, I have to cut it out. I've got too many important things on you know.
Sure, I mean, you're running a whole company and everything else that's going on. You know, as we're sort of wrapping up, we're for tonight. I know you wanted to mention something about. I think LaunchGood has something special that's coming up for the month of Ramadan, which is a very special month for the Muslim community. If you want to just share, I guess what about that a little bit.
Yeah. So one thing I'm so proud of LaunchGood is we're not just trying to be a copycat of Kickstarter or a copycat of GoFundMe. We are really building this from scratch for the Muslim community, and we challenge ourselves to think like, how can we cater this specifically to Muslims? And a few years ago, we came up with this idea of like, hey, Ramadan, everyone loves Ramadan. It's this really special time. What if we could create a tool or a program, a product that could help Muslims like yourself, myself, make the most of every day of Ramadan by donating every day. And so we call that the Ramadan Challenge. So it's like 30 days, donate every day of the 30 days of Ramadan. We ended up getting 500 signups our first year, then 2,500 the next year. And then last year, our third year, we got 15,000 people signed up. And these were 15,000 people from like over 80 countries. And they may only be donating $5 or $10 a day, but it ended up being almost $2 million of donations total.
Wow.
And, you know, more and more people join every day. By the end of Ramadan, we were giving out $100,000 a day. And so that was really special. We're going to be releasing it. Actually, you could check it out and get on like the sign up list now if you go to launchgood.com/challenge. And then in mid-April, we'll be officially launching the full sign-up process. But you can already get on the email list now if people went to launchgood.com/challenge.
Very cool. So I think Jawad is going to put it up, launchgood.com/challenge. You put up in the comment section. Most of our viewers, they watch the replay. So in the live sessions, we have a certain amount of people. But most folks, they watch in replay. So the folks that are watching this, they will see it on the comment, or we'll put it on the description. Now, Jawad, do we have any comments or questions from anyone?
Yes.
Okay, so we have some questions. We'll take them very briefly, and then we'll go from there. So would you want to pull it up on the screen, or?
Yeah, so I just put the launchgood.com/challenge.
Okay, cool. So you see on the screen right now there, launchgood.com/challenge. And we'll put it up later on as well. But I guess we can take some quick questions as before we wrap up. It's been awesome so far. Jawad, if you can just put it on the screen, and then we go from there.
Can you see it?
All right. So, Chris, can you see it? The question?
Yep. That's
awesome.
Cool.
And you know, actually, I'm glad he asked. His name is Naji. Actually, he's my grandmaster. So he opened the first Muslim dojo in New York, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So for sure, I think so. He has a question here. Are the best campaign, in your opinion, the ones with an emotional message attached with the real video?
Yeah, so definitely we talked about emotional message. Absolutely. The video, that's a great add-on to this question. And it's great because it's a huge opportunity and most people miss it. So typically campaigns with videos raise twice as much money as those without videos. And you really don't want to recycle a video. You don't want to just like, oh, well, we made this video and it's been on YouTube for like 4 years. Let's just pop that in there. No, you really want to invest in, a couple $1,000, make a proper video. It's difficult. It's even difficult for us, like as LaunchGood, when we have to make videos. But it's always worth it. And work with professionals, do it right, and be authentic. Don't try to be someone you're not, but be authentic, be who you are.
Right.
People will reward you. If people can see like you're really trying hard, you're really putting a lot of sand into this, and you're trying to do it right, and you're invested in it, they're going to repay you for that. And if they feel like you're just trying to make a quick buck and not put any work in, they're also going to sense that, and they're not going to support you. There's no such thing as free money.
For sure. I mean, so because you have seen so many campaigns, right?
Yeah.
So what would your advice be for Naji, as far as this is a first Muslim official dojo, and he's trying to raise more money so he can actually complete the facility, have more Muslims learn self-defense martial art in his facility, including gym and workout. What would you say some practical tips for him if he were to launch a campaign with you in LaunchGood?
Well, first of all, please do. We'd love to have the first Muslim dojo on LaunchGood. That sounds awesome.
Naji, if you're hearing this for you.
Yeah, man, it's great. And then that video, like again, I would start thinking about that video. That video is the reason why making a great video is so powerful for a campaign is all the work that goes into it. Like you really have to think through, like, okay, if I have 120 seconds to communicate everything I want to communicate, what I'm going to talk about. It really forces you to figure out like what is so special about you. Why should people care about you? Why should people support you? And it forces you to really understand yourself better. But imagine like some awesome video that starts off with like some fighting, and then you're like, ooh, like what's this? Like I want to watch it, right?
Right.
You got someone's attention, and now go into it. Start telling your story, like who are you? Why did you start this? What's the vision for it? And how can I help? That's it. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science.
Jawad, we have any more questions that we want to take, or?
No.
Okay. There's some other comments, but not really something of substance. So as we wrap up, Chris, again, thank you so much for taking the time. Now, I want to ask you this one last question. So what's in store for Chris in the next 5 years? What's the long-term game here?
It's a great question. Next 5 years. I'm at a point in my I got a great piece of advice. So I in my 20s, and I'm going to share this. Maybe close with it. It's very
Absolutely.
nice. I was studying Arabic in my early 20s in Jordan in a place called Qasid.
I have a lot of friends that went there, right?
And it's amazing. I mean, I've studied Arabic in different places, and that was just the best. And I was so impressed by one of the founders, the co-founders, named Muhammad Mar'i, something like that. And I was just like, man, you got the life made for you. Like you started Qasid, you've got a great family. You spend half your year in Jordan, the other half of the year in Northern California. Like financially, you're set. I was like, how'd you do it? Like what was your secret? And his advice to me was spend your 20s learning. And the key to that, what most people don't do, is challenge yourself. So like when you get comfortable with something, you have to leave it and challenge yourself with something new. So like I was teaching for a couple of years. That was really hard at first, teaching at high school. And then like, okay, by that point I had all the curriculum down. I had all the tests saved. I could just change some, numbers, whatever. I could have hit cruise control. And it's like, okay, now I need to switch. And I went into nonprofit. And I did that for a little bit, and I started figuring that out. I was like, okay, let me go into film. I had no idea what I was doing in film. And then I went into tech, and I was like, I had no idea what I was doing in this like website, right? So I was constantly challenging myself. And then he said, so spend your 20s learning as much as you can, and spend your 30s building upon what you've learned now. Like really start building something. And so that's the phase I feel like I'm in LaunchGood. Like I have no desire to go anywhere. Like where do I hope LaunchGood? Like 5 years from now, I want to drive LaunchGood to become $1 billion platform. Not $1 billion raised. A lifetime, like $1 billion every single year. So we have a ways to go, but I believe within the next 5 years that we'll be helping fundraise over $1 billion every single year for the Muslim community. And I'm pretty focused on that. And, you know, other than that, raising my family, traveling, learning Quran, it's a nice rhythm to be in. You get older, you kind of like being in rhythms.
Right. You get a little flow. You get sort of these things you do, and you sort out. What doesn't for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful. No, we hope you the best. Okay. With that, you know, again, thank you so much for taking time out, being with us. I know we're a little bit over time. There was so much that I wanted to sort of, you know, dig into, but we hope to have you back.
Thanks so much, Hassan.
All right. Take care. All right, folks. I hope that was a gem, and we got into a lot. If you're just watching right now, definitely after this live broadcast is over, go back, watch it again. We started off talking about, you know, the LaunchGood and how he started, and, you know, what it takes for you to take an idea and make it into a company. And we dug deep into that. Then went into about social media activism. What does that mean? And if you're watching this, you know, this is a weekly Facebook live show that we do every Monday. Some Mondays we have obviously guests, and I'm really excited that next week for our live build-up show, 10 o'clock every Monday, we have Bilal Khan. He's the founding director of Lichan Media, and he's, you know, I'm sure, especially those folks in the Muslim community, you have seen his videos and advertisements, and he just someone really good. You know, he's a consultant for a lot of companies, doing media work, marketing work, social media marketing work. So I will have him next week, and we hope you can join us every week, 10 p.m. Mondays, you know, for our weekly live show. And also, we are starting something new. This is going to be cool. We're starting what's called Value Sunday. All right. So it's basically, you know, this show is now started. How long now, Jawad? We are
more than 6 months.
More than 6 months now. So you guys been with us for, you know, 6 months here. This has been a tremendous journey. We've been sticking to it. You know, I was in Texas. We made it happen every Monday, and we hope to continue to do this. So as our live build up, you know, this what we're trying to offer to folks in the career, folks who are entrepreneurs, folks who just want to do more with their life, and trying to find balance, trying to find, you know, fulfillment. So we want to grow what we offer. So not only, you know, every Monday night you join us, and I'm so happy that thank you for making you know, us part of your life every Monday night. And we're adding this Value Sunday newsletter. So, you know, sign up for this. You could go to our website, our website, livebuildup.com, and you click on the Value Sundays. And once you click there, you put your name, put your email, and every Sunday you're going to receive a you know, a short, practical, you know, tool that you can apply. So my hope is in once a week to be able to address one particular issue and then give you some really practical stuff you could do about it. So from things like, you know, what to do about if I feel, you know, tired in the morning, you know, how to, you know, sleep on time, you know, or even things like, you know, I have an idea and how do I find an angel investor, like what Chris was talking about. So, you know, we'll tackle very specific things and give you as much practical thing as we can. And we cover, from personal development to entrepreneurship, and to all the areas in between. So sign up for this at livebuildup.com. Click on Value Sundays. Right, make sure you go there right now if you're watching this, and if you're watching a replay, you should go there right now, livebuildup.com, LIFEBUILDUP.com, and click on Value Sundays, and you're gonna get a a newsletter, an email once a week, and it'll be just filled with gem. So we hope you can join us next week. See you Monday 10 p.m. Have a good night and take care.